Why hello there friends, it's Emma here, the Bookish Princess. Welcome to an April reading and general life updates vlog. There have been so many beautiful spring flowers and pretty rainy days and pretty sunny days, so I've been trying to capture those. I try to go out for a bike ride at least every day, but that's like really the only time I've been out of my house like for the past, month and a half now. I feel like with the quarantine and stay at home, it's like we've entered this weird time flux where I'm like surprised that April is already over, but I'm also surprised that like it's not much further in the future than April. Like I feel like we're already well into May. I have been reading. I haven't been reading quite as much as I mean to read. I feel like I go through these waves where it's like, yes, I feel like I can find a new routine, get things organized, and other days where it's just like in my spare time I escape into Animal Crossing because I can't deal with it. I've been rereading some Jane Austen. Jane Austen is one of my favorite authors and always who I turn to for comfort, and I recently got these beautiful new penguin cloth bound editions. I just showed them in my bookshelf tour. My bookshelf tour seems to be doing really well, and I think I have a lot of new subscribers. So hello, welcome to the Bookish Kingdom. If you're new, make sure you leave a comment down below and introduce yourself. Whenever I get new books, I have to break them in. Like most of the books on my bookshelf, I have read that copy. So even if it's a book that I've already read another copy of, it's like I want to have read every copy on my shelf. So I'm almost through with my reread of Sense and Sensibility. After this, I'm thinking I might start a reread of Pride and Prejudice because I haven't reread that in a while. You know, it's funny, with Pride and Prejudice you have Mrs. Bennet, who's always scheming to marry her daughters off. And in Sense and Sensibility you have Mrs. Jennings, who successfully married both of her daughters off and now is ready to marry everybody else, every other young lady of her acquaintance, out of perfectly good will. And obviously Mrs. Bennet and Mrs. Jennings are annoying characters, but like the thing is, when you stop and think about it, they get the job done. Like Mrs. Jennings married off both of her daughters, and at the beginning when she says that Colonel Brandon and Marianne will be a match, she's right. She gets it right. And even like Mrs. Bennet, obviously she's annoying, and obviously she gets in her own way because Mr. Darcy is so disgusted that is what holds him off from proposing to Lizzie. But at the same time, Lizzie does marry Mr. Darcy and Jane does marry Mr. Bennet, and so in a way Mrs. Bennet succeeds. It's like, even though you don't like their methods, it's just kind of ironic that like they work somehow in the end, at least in Jane Austen's world. I really love the way we see more and more sides of Mrs. Jennings' character, because in the beginning she's a busybody and she's just so loud and just kind of obnoxious. But then when she invites the girls, Marianne and Eleanor, to London, we kind of see more and more of her, and we also realize that even though Mrs. Jennings is annoying, like other people, like Eleanor's half-brother Mr. Dashwood and his wife Fanny Dashwood, they are far worse than Mrs. Jennings, and Mrs. Jennings really does prove her kind of warmth of heart, and I just love so many of the descriptions. Her usual noisy cheerfulness, there's Mrs. Jennings in 4 words. So we see that Mrs. Jennings really does have a warm heart, even if her sort of effusions and efforts sometimes don't come across properly, like when Marianne is unhappy and Mrs. Jennings brought her a letter from her mother and thought it would cheer her up, but Marianne thought it was a letter from Willoughby, so it just really distressed her. Eleanor had not needed this to be assured of the injustice of which her sister was often led in her opinion of others by the irritable refinement of her own mind, and the too great importance placed on her by the delicacies of a strong sensibility and the graces of a polished manner. Like half the rest of the world, if more than half there be that are clever and good, Marianne, with excellent abilities and an excellent disposition, was neither reasonable nor candid. She expected from other people the same opinions and feelings as her own, and she judged of their motives by the immediate effect of their actions on herself. Jane Austen's characters are so nuanced and so kind of many-sided, because here Marianne is one of the heroines. We're obviously meant to admire her in a lot of ways, but we're also very aware of her faults, and Mrs. Jennings, we're aware of Mrs. Jennings' faults. Jane Austen also shows Mrs. Jennings' good side, so I just really love that. Anyway, I have copied out many quotes from Sense and Sensibility, and some I obviously know by heart, but I was thinking maybe I'll add another one to this is sort of my like bookish bullet journal-ish. I don't know, I just started it at the start of 2020, and I only did 2 pages for January and 2 pages for February. I did show this in my earlier reading vlogs this year, but yes, unfortunately I haven't done any for March, and I haven't done, well, I started March, there it is. And I haven't done any from April, so I really need to get on that. You know, I tried keeping a bullet journal once, and it just was too much effort because, like, I don't know, sometimes you just need to make a quick and dirty to-do list and, like, get it done. And with me, when I make, like, a really nice to-do list and I spend, like, a long time on it, I think it's really completed, inevitably, I sit down, I think of things that I didn't write on the to-do list that need to be done right now, so I get those things done, and they take a long time, and when I come back to my to-do list, I'm not able to check anything off, even though I was actually productive. And so I feel like I've gotten nothing done, and my beautiful to-do list just reproaches me. When I tried doing a bullet journal, I just felt like it was too much work. But I recently discovered a YouTuber, Amanda Rach Lee, who does such cute bullet journal spreads. And I think what people do is they just find a YouTuber they like and then copy that bullet journal spread, which makes a lot of sense because then you wouldn't have to like put the time and sort of creative energy into coming up with the whole spread yourself. You could just have something to work off. Amanda's most recent layout was inspired by Animal Crossing and all the Animal Crossing New Horizons flowers, and it was just so adorable. Anyway, so I'm not sure I'll get back into full-on bullet journaling, but at least it has inspired me to pick up my bookish bullet journal and try to get some more quotes entered in here. So I'll have to go back in March. I was thinking I would do the Ent quote that I read in my last month's reading vlog, and then I could do like a little sort of tree sketch to accompany it. Another book I mentioned in last month's reading vlog was this one, Avec Constantin by Ludovic Haleve. I found this at a used bookstore, just such a pretty, beautiful book. And you know what? I felt like the story inside matched the outside. Like, this felt like a French bonbon of a book. But like a good bonbon, you know, not just like sugary, but something with like a little bit of substance, like that you'd sit at a cafe and just have, you know, like a beautiful piece of chocolate cake with some whipped cream on top and like a coffee. That's what reading this book was like. It was just a happy story, but like the writing was nice and the description of the beautiful French estate and like the little village and the priest. The priest is the title character, Abbe Constantin. The estate near him is bought by some wealthy Americans, and he's very nervous because he was really good friends with the estate owners and like they would donate a lot to help the poor, but it turns out the Americans are Catholic and they're just such a sweet family. Like, even though they're kind of wealthy and rich and move in these like wealthy circles, it's like they have kind of kept their morals and they have kept their, you know, stayed grounded, and there is a lovely romance, and so lovely to find that the inside matched the outside. As I was copying out my quotes, I was just realizing again what a delightful book this is. So we see the two sisters arrive in Paris. The sisters grew up poor, but then came into wealth. They have French ancestors, and eventually the one sister convinces her husband to take them to Paris, that they should go live in Paris for a while. Victory, it is decided. Richard has consented. I shall arrive in April and become a French woman again. You offered to undertake all the preparations for our settlement in Paris. I am horribly presuming. I accept. When I arrive in Paris, I should like to be able to enjoy Paris and not be obliged to lose the first month in running after upholsterers, coach builders, horse dealers. I should like, on arriving at the railway station, to find awaiting me my carriage, my coachman, my horses. That very day, I should like you to dine with me at my home, hire or buy a mansion, engage the servants, choose the horses, the carriage, the liveries, as long as the liveries are blue. That is the only point. This line is added at Bettina's request. How hilarious is this? This is just such a delightful kind of dream where you arrive in Paris and your best friend. Look at this. Above all, my dear Katie, do not consider money. Be as extravagant as you like. That is all I ask. And yet they are so like grounded, even though like everyone falls in love with them and they're so, everyone thinks they're beautiful. There was another really funny passage. The success of Mrs. Scott and Miss Percival was immediate, decisive, like a flash of lightning. The beauties of Paris are not classed and catalogued like the beauties of London. They do not publish their portraits in the illustrated papers or allow their photograph to be sold at the stationers. I guess they used to do that. Isn't that crazy? However, there is always a little staff consisting of a score of women who represent the grace and charm and beauty of Paris, which women, after 10 or 12 years' service, pass into the reserve. Just like old generals, Susie and Bettina immediately became part of this little staff. The two newcomers were immediately remarked and appreciated as they deserved to be by the 30 or 40 persons who constitute a sort of mysterious tribunal, and who, in the name of all Paris, pass sentences beyond appeal. Oh my gosh, just so funny, so sweet. But like I was saying, the sisters do stay grounded, and they still are such like nice people. And even that while they enjoy the kind of whirl of popularity and whirl of parties in Paris, they look forward to getting out to the country where, oh, here, I copied it out. I could just read it to you from my bullet journal. This is about Bettina. She felt the need of being given up to herself for a few days, to herself alone, to consult and question herself at her leisure in the complete solitude of the country. In a word, to belong to herself again. She receives all these offers of marriage, but none of them really tempt her. But then, when she arrives in the countryside, she meets a young man who is not rich or important, and actually that's kind of what keeps them apart for a while, because he is sort of frightened away by her wealth. But it does end happily. It's just such a delight. So I have to say, I'm rather pleased with how my March and April pages turned out. They're certainly more creative than February and January. Here's my Ent page with the Ent quotes. And then here's Abbe Constantin. Here's my Sense and Sensibility page. And then this was inspired by the Animal Crossing flowers. Originally, I was going to put my Hound of the Baskervilles quotes on this page, but then I realized the flowers really don't fit it. And I remembered I read Leaf by Niggle in April. I did a live stream with you guys, so I probably won't talk about Leaf by Niggle in this reading vlog because I talked about it for an hour on the live stream. But if you haven't watched that, you can go check it out. I absolutely adore Leaf by Niggle, and it was so fun in the live stream. I picked out some of my favorite quotes and read them out. I'm not sure I love how the Hound of the Baskervilles page turned out. I wanted to do like the documents because one of the funny quotes here I copied out was about the documents. Sherlock Holmes, after seeing this document poking out of a guy's pocket for a few minutes, says, "You have presented an inch or two of the document to my observation all the time that you've been talking. It would be a poor expert who could not give the date of a document within a decade or two. You may possibly have read my little monograph on the subject." Sherlock Holmes is just so obnoxious. Like, this is the compliment he gives to Watson. "You excel yourself. It may be that you are not yourself luminous, but you are a conductor of light." So yeah, I read The Hound of the Baskervilles, and I also rewatched the Sherlock episode. So there's a series called Sherlock with oh my gosh, Bilbo and Smaug. So Smaug is, the voice of Smaug in the Hobbit movie is Benedict Cumberbatch, and Martin Freeman, I think, is Bilbo. And so it's just kind of fun that Watson is Martin Freeman and Benedict Cumberbatch is Sherlock, and I think they do an awesome job. And you can tell the people who did that series know and love the book. So it was really fun to read the original Sir Arthur Conan Doyle story while rewatching that, because even though in some ways it is like completely, totally different, totally reworked, there are lots of little moments. Like, I think they kept that quote. There are lots of little things that they work in that were clearly right from the original. So yes, well, I have to say I'm fairly pleased with myself. Look at this. I did 3 pages for April instead of just 2. So I like to reread Jane Austen whenever I'm in need of some comfort. But my other comfort author is P.G. Wodehouse, and after doing my bookshelf tours, there are so many books I want to reread now. Like, I've been meaning to reread Dorothy Sayers for ages. I should probably start with Strong Poison. See, I think Gaudy Night is my favorite, and when I first read Dorothy Sayers, Gaudy Night was the one I read first, so I read it in the completely wrong order because they are a series, and Strong Poison is the first. So I feel like now I have to read it. The second read, I should definitely read it in order, not out of order, like I did last time. And yeah, I have to decide which P.G. Wodehouse. I'm tempted to just reread Leave It to Smith because that's one of my faves. But I also love The Moliners. Decisions. Oh, I did do another Beatrix Potter painting with my cousin. This time I did, no wait, it wasn't the Flopsy Bunnies. I always get confused because Benjamin Bunny, the Flopsy Bunnies are also in Benjamin Bunny because they're about the same little family. They're sort of sequels to each other, but yes, that's the painting that I recreated. Isn't this funny? Old Mrs. Rabbit was a widow. She earned her living by knitting rabbit wool mittens and muffatees. I once bought a pair at a bazaar. She also sold herbs and rosemary tea and rabbit tobacco, which is what we will call lavender. Wow, rabbit tobacco. Yeah, so I realized that said tea and tobacco at the top. Here is my version. I tried to write tea and lavender, but there was no space. But yeah, I think it turned out fairly well. This little rabbit on the end, his eye, I could not get it right, and I feel like he looks sort of evil, and the other two rabbits are looking at him in fear, so... So yes, that didn't work out. It's been really fun to get back into painting a little bit. One notable classic that was missing from my bookshelf tour were Shakespeare, and that's because when I read Shakespeare, I usually go and borrow my mom's Arden Shakespeare editions, which the best thing about these are the notes inside. They are so thorough, so fascinating, so well written, and like honestly the introductions are really good too. Generally, I skip the introduction of a book because like I just want to read it and form my own opinion of it. I don't need someone to tell me what to think about it before I've even read it. The notes make the plays about twice as long to read, but you get so much more out of the play. In one of my old videos, I mentioned that I would really love to read all of Shakespeare's plays at some point, which is still a goal I have not yet achieved. I've read most of the ones here. I think the only one here I haven't read is Troilus and Cressida. I haven't read The Tempest in a long time, so I was thinking about rereading that. Yes, I feel like I should read a Shakespeare. I just don't know which one to grab. I don't have Hamlet here, but the Hamlet edition is so hilarious because it's like this thick. It has so many notes. Another thing that I like to reread, that I often will reread just to kind of ground myself, is Elizabeth Goudge, and I missed Elizabeth Goudge's birthday. I'm so mad. It was right at the end of April. I meant to do like a fun video for it, like my favorite Elizabeth Goudge quotes, because I feel like there's so many lines from Elizabeth Goudge that really stay with me, that I just find a lot of inspiration from. So I'll have to do that maybe next year for Elizabeth Goudge's birthday or at some other point. But yes, The Scent of Water was the one I was thinking of rereading. This one is about a woman who inherits an old cottage. She lived in London her whole life, but now she comes to the countryside and like discovers the history of this place and all of her neighbors. There's also the Damaroche trilogy, which I have not reread in a very long time. Yeah, see, there are too many new books to read, but then there are also too many old books to reread.